Hi, I'm Patrick, and this is the Mach-E vlog. Behind me is a 2025 Mustang Mach-E, and we're here with Tom from Ford, who's going to give us a grand tour. So let's go. Okay, so first of all, let's introduce Tom, and then we'll introduce the 2025 Mach-E. So Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, Tom Somerville. I'm the marketing director for our enthusiast electric vehicles, of which Mustang Mach-E is one of them. So thank you guys for coming today.
We're definitely enthusiasts, and we definitely love the Mach-E. We've loved our Grabber Blue Mach-E, but we're standing in front of a 2025, and one of the boldest changes, in our opinion, since we love Grabber Blue, this is now Velocity Blue. This is one of the new colors that's out.
Yeah, so new color to Mustang Mach-E, not a new color to Ford, not a new color to any of our trucks or enthusiast vehicles. You know, this has been a fan favorite on Mustang for a very long time. Deeper blue, slightly richer than Grabber, also iconic like Grabber Blue. A lot of people obviously miss it.
I keep looking at it. It looks really good. I don't know how well it translates to camera, but if you've seen, you know, like you said, some of these other Ford enthusiast cars, you probably have seen Velocity Blue. Absolutely.
So really excited to bring it. We also have a fun new desert sand terrain, so more earth tones kind of playing into.
Looks great on the Rally.
Oh, see, that's right. So you've seen the Rally with.
Not in person, but in photos. But it's like you can't tell if it's dirty or not because it's sand color.
Yeah, that's fair. A ton of other changes coming to it, right? So these are the all new base wheels on the GT. So these are the stock wheels you'll get with the GT, and of course you can upgrade to the optional wheel that we launched at 24 model year, or the bronze package, which is continuing. So GT customers, you have 3 different wheel options, from the base black one to the optional multi-spoke gray, and then to the bronze for people who are a fan of the bronze appearance package.
Yeah, I think it really pairs well with this new wheel. It was one of the first things I noticed, besides, of course, the Velocity Blue, but the black glossy plays well with like some of the other glossy black elements on the Mach-E. But another little like smaller detail that I noticed right off the bat, because I was like, wait a second, this is a GT, but it's missing something that the previous Mach-E's had, and that's like it doesn't have the Mach-E 4X. And I have to sort of explain that to people because a lot of people don't know the differences in the badging on the Mach-E door, and that's why there's not a 4X.
100%, right? So first of all, amazing eagle eye. First time anyone today, or since we've had any 25, has actually identified that we have a new badge. But we effectively did some research for another vehicle line to try to understand what sort of badging do we want to include on all electric vehicles going forward. So of all the attributes you can kind of present with a badge, 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive is a common one, and extended range or standard range was one that we were leaning into, but you were seeing a lot less of, at least from a badge standpoint, on other electric vehicles. So did some research, and we found what was most meaningful to customers was being able to identify is a 2- or 4-wheel drive versus extended or standard range battery.
That's very interesting.
And I think to your point, it kind of cleaned it up a bit and made it more easily recognizable as, hey, there was a change there. And that was some of the feedback we got directly on Mustang Mach-E. Was some people said it was a little confusing because there's a lot of things going on. So we were like, how can we simplify it? And as part of simplifying it, what do we want to include? 4-wheel drive or extended range? And the clear winner was 4-wheel drive or not. Okay.
So I know that'll be controversial for some people, but the reality is like, based on your research, is like most people, that's what's important, is 4-wheel or all-wheel drive. And a lot of people, like we've talked to so many people, they didn't know that there's any difference in the badging at all.
Exactly. And honestly, like, not to go into too many details, but we were talking a lot about, do we want to move the badge? So this whole conversation started from one of our customer events, and we were noticing people who had actually removed the badge, and we're like, oh, that's interesting. Is there something we want to do from that? And that kind of then snowballed into a bunch of other things. And so the end result was kind of a simple change, but one that cleans it up a bit, where there's no longer the X for extended range.
Very cool. Now, one of the biggest changes for 2025 that a lot of people have been asking since even back in 2021 when we got our first edition is, can we get a heat pump in the Mach-E? So we'll show the front, and then we'll take a look because there's some other changes in the interior. But this is huge coming for the 2025. And we're going to make a note real quick before we get into this. This is a 2024 grille.
Yes.
It's a pre-production model, so it has a 2024 grille. There is going to be some changes on the 2025 grille, correct?
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. So again, eagle eye for those of you who see the 2025s. It's a slightly different grille that has a little bit more texture and no longer has this polycarbonate sheath that's over the sort of textured element behind it. So you're going to see has a little bit more depth, a little bit more detail. I think you guys have already seen the pictures of it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the only vehicle we had available for this event was a pre-production. So yes, 2024 grille on a 2025.
Okay, we'll be there later.
In the sport package, we'll be able to get that new grille without the light up pony. The GT will still have the light up pony.
Exactly. And so, one question we've actually gotten here today at the show was, hey, is that a premium with a sport package or is that a GT?
Right.
This is very much a GT. There's some other differences between the premium with the sport package and the GT, such as the wheels.
Right.
So the premium sport appearance package will still have black wheels, but smaller diameter and a different design.
And we'll still have the GT logo in the back.
There's no no GT logo on the back for the sport package.
Right.
Yes.
But on the GT.
Exactly. The
that's
GT will
where you look.
exactly. That's
Yeah,
one
very cool.
easy way to look. And again, you mentioned like the illuminated pony as well.
Okay.
So this is the new frunk for the 2025.
Quite a bit smaller.
Yes.
But you get the heat pump.
Exactly. So
Now-
40% smaller, but that is, and we can't remove it, but the amount of cooling and electrical changes required to deliver the heat pump force us into a decision of, do we want to have a smaller frunk or a heat pump? And as you mentioned, we've been getting feedback on needing, or customers wanting to bring a heat pump
Right.
since we launched the vehicle. So this is the
Yeah.
first time that we have it available.
And I got to be honest, like I like the size of the current frunk, and I'll miss that a little bit. We don't generally use it a lot, and I know that you were saying, or Ford has been saying, a lot of people aren't using their frunk.
Yeah.
In the Mach-E, in the Lightning, that's a different story.
Exactly. I mean, completely different value proposition for the two of them. Like a truck
Right.
has a bed, but you don't typically have enclosed storage. This is a whole 5-passenger CUV where you have plenty of interior storage. So
Right.
people are using the frunk a little bit less.
Yeah, we generally, to be honest, we mostly keep like our charging cable and charging adapters and our air compressor, because we bought a different air compressor. That would all still fit here.
Yes.
I couldn't put a carry-on, which that was always my test, but I never put a carry-on there.
Yeah. And so it's actually funny you mentioned that, because we were looking at data to understand what do people most likely carry. And one thing we were looking at were instances where people were charging and opening the frunk within 5 minutes of each other. So
Right.
basically indicating that, hey, people are using their mobile, they're using it to store their charger.
Yeah.
And the two things we see the most are, yes, one, the charger, like you guys. And the other thing that we've heard just verbally is backpacks. So a lot of people who
Yeah.
have a backpack like yourself, and they might want to secure it in here versus anywhere else. So
We're
this
going to
generally,
test it out right now. You just gave me like, ta-da! It would fit, no problem.
so those are the two things that people use the most. But again, it also helps deliver the new heat pump that's under there too.
Yeah, and now, and I know the answer to this, or I'm guessing. I haven't even asked you this off camera or anything, but I'm going to, like, range effects of having a heat pump. I'm assuming, I'm going to predict your answer is, like, it's not really going to have, like, a dramatic effect, but conditionally, it can help out quite a bit.
Exactly, and it really helps with the fringes. It's one of those things that people continually ask us, hey, can you put a finite number on the actual benefit it brings?
Right.
There's so many variables in that. It depends on, is it hot or cold? How cold or hot is it? Are
Right.
you preconditioning? Are you taking other necessary steps to ensure maximum range in, fringe temperatures? So it varies significantly, but generally speaking, it is meant to improve your overall range and the efficiency of the vehicle when it's, call it, 10 to 40 degrees. And then when you're above like 85-ish, it's where you're also going to see a strong benefit. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, so it's fringes, depends on the person, depends on so many other factors, but it is something where people have asked for it. People are very familiar with what heat pumps do.
Right.
And we've seen promising data in terms of the efficiency improvement it brings. So.
Now, one question that we've already seen people are asking is, like, will it work in the Minnesota deep cold? Because there's a lot of thought process of, like, heat pumps work in certain temperature ranges, but if it's negative 10 degrees, will you still have a warm cabin and a warm battery?
Yeah, so I mean, like, the maximum benefits are between certain thresholds, but it's going to be benefit across the entire range, including in super cold weather. It's just where do you see the maximum benefits? And the maximum benefits for most people are generally the Northeast, where we have high adoption, and super hot places like Southern California and also Texas, Arizona, where we're seeing an increased groundswell of people getting Mustang Mach-E's.
Yeah.
So a benefit across the range, but the best benefit in, this is not like specific, but call it like the 10 to 40, 20 to 40 degree. And
For a
and
lot
like
of people's
85. Exactly,
winter.
exactly.
Well, that's great to hear. I know, again, that's one of the things, like in the comments on a lot of our videos is like, Does it have a heat pump? Like
Yes.
every single video where we talk about the new 2022, the new 2023 was why doesn't it have a heat pump?
Yeah.
Now it's going to be like, it does.
It does, exactly. And I think that's a good segue to what something else we continually heard people ask for were ventilated seats. I think if you kind of knock off, like, what are the things that over the last 3 years people have asked the most for, in no particular order, heat pump is always top, ventilated seats was always around up there as well.
So I had a question about that I didn't actually see. So this is going to put you on the spot as well. So I saw ventilated seats are coming on the premium.
Yes.
On the GT, I'm assuming the GT seats are still the GT seats.
They're still exactly. They're
Okay.
still the Ford Performance seats, and this is across the board. Our Ford Performance seats generally do not have ventilated seating features. However, I will say that since we went live with 25 model year, there's been an outpouring of feedback asking for ventilated seats on GT. So
I'm guessing, we got a lot of that as well.
we got, and so we looked at the other vehicle lines that have Ford Performance seats, and there hasn't been that feedback asking for ventilated seats, which just shows you Mustang Mach-E customer a little bit different than, say, the ICE Mustang customer, where the performance seats don't have ventilated features, and other feature cars.
It's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different. And so even across some of the Raptor products that don't, there hasn't been that feedback. But man, on GT, as soon as people saw that Premium did and GT didn't, there was that groundswell of like response.
And I think it's sort of like the way the Mach-E is, because I know a lot of people, they want the Magna-Ride suspension.
Yes.
And that's like it's the GT suspension, it's performance oriented, but a lot of people want Magna-Ride suspension on a premium.
Yeah, so again, great segue. For 2025, we did a complete chassis retune for both Select and Premium. A lot of feedback on bounciness of ride,
Bouncy ride.
Specifically, and it's actually worse than the
in the rear.
feedback has been it's been worse rear than front. So this was something that we were very focused on for the last couple of years when we immediately started hearing that. What can we do to improve the ride quality on say Select and Premium, and not necessarily have to bring Magna Ride to Select and Premium for people who don't care about some of those other benefits that Magna Ride brings. I mean, Magna Ride is an extremely flexible platform. It makes a lot of sense on rally for the softness of off-road use. Makes a lot of sense with GT for performance utilization, but for people who are typically buying a Select or a Premium and they're not looking for either the more off-road or on-road performance elements, the suspension retune was the best thing we could possibly have done to increase that ride quality.
That's actually really exciting, because like they wanted better suspension. Magna Ride is sort of like the big gorilla in the room, costs a lot of money, complex, but really it's another way of getting there was performance tune or suspension tune.
And part of this is also there's been multiple iterations of who our kind of key Mustang Mach-E customers have been, as over the last 5 years. And initially, like the sportiness, like there was a lot of interest in momentum and enthusiasm for GT. Not to say that there still isn't, but you're seeing a lot of people who are like, I want an EV, I want it to look great, but I also wanted to be comfortable. And so to your point, like Magna Ride would have been a solution, but the simpler, probably better solution for everybody is most people don't need the adjustability of Magna Ride. So then the simple factor is, let's retune the chassis and the suspension to make it more what customers are looking for.
And then you can do the Premium with the sport appearance package and sort of get some of that look, which is controversial, but for people that want that look, I think it's a great option.
And that's what we see and hear more and more. Not everyone values 600 or 700 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
Not everyone needs to continually be running sub-12-second quarter miles or 0 to 60s that are under 3.5 seconds. But people like the way it looks. And by the way, a Premium with the big battery through most acceleration tests, including the quarter mile, is quicker than the original GTs were. So you're still getting a ton of performance. You're still getting 500 pound-feet of torque. You're just not getting the same level that the GT now has.
Well, that's something I wanted to touch on, because like we're standing in front of a 2025. One of the other differences from 2024 carried over is the tri-bar headlights. But from, we're actually, 5 years ago, we were at the LA Auto Show. First time we saw a Mach-E, we put in a reservation on the spot, which launched this whole journey for us. But there's been some people consider it small changes, but there's been a lot of changes from the time that we saw it 5 years ago to now. Faster charging. Not like, double charging speed, but like 20% faster charging.
Yes.
New motors.
Yes.
Quicker times. When we had our first edition, it was 0 to 60 in like 4.8 seconds. Now the Premium is like 0 to 60, 4.1.
Yes.
Which is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Suspension retune, heat pump. when we first got our Mach-E, didn't have Blue Cruise at all. Now we're talking about Blue Cruise. On the new models, they're, what's the version?
It's 1.5 now.
1.5?
Yes, 1.5.
So we have 1.3 on our 2022, so it does assisted lane changes, but in the 1.5, you can just basically let it decide when it wants to do a lane change if you want.
It's automatic, and I think, as guys, I know you've driven many iterations of Blue Cruise. One of the things that really stands out, and a lot of people value assisted or unassisted lane changes, but the duration where you are operating in a hands-free environment has exponentially increased as you've gone from like 1.0 to 1.3, 4, 5. But I think that journey is pretty reflective of how we've continually improved Mustang Mach-E too. I mean, you've mentioned some of them. Like for 2024, we effectively touched almost all the hardware underneath. Bringing the big motor from Lightning, right? I mean, like that's literally a classic hot rod is taking the biggest possible motor and putting it in the smallest possible package. So that's one thing we did, and we got efficiency benefits, not just performance, efficiency benefits. A lot of hardware improvements from the high voltage components. Adding a heat pump, some of the interior changes we haven't really talked about, and I think one of the other keys that we've also really leaned into is the personalization. Mustang's always stood for personalization, freedom, And one thing we continually hear from, talking to you guys, going to customer events is how, again, Mustang Mach-E is able to stand out in a landscape that is a little bit more amorphous. You see a lot more blobs. And so what's been important to us is making sure that every series has appearance packages and optional wheels.
Yeah.
And that's inspiration we've gotten from connecting with customers and seeing what people are doing, with their own customization.
I tell you, for 2024 with the eruption green with the bronze package, that is such a, just to say we're going to change the paint and change the color, the grille, the wheels. It's amazing, what a transformation that did for the overall package, and it's a head turner. And I got to tell you, one of my favorite things is showing up at a Tesla supercharger, checking in and making sure on Google Photos as well as PlugShare, we have a bright blue, grabber blue Mach-E as one of the photos that's in there because
I love that.
It's sort of no knocks against other manufacturers, but I will. But it's gray, white.
Gray, white, gray, black.
Yeah.
Grabber blue.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I love that. And I love the design. It's been 5 years since we first saw it. And I think it still looks fantastic. But there's some other things. I want to step over here.
Yeah.
And we should probably look inside. But I want to hit on this because I think this is huge. And I think this is sort of kudos to Ford for listening to customers. And we were just talking off camera about some of the stuff has been with the Mach-E since day one, like the 8-year, 100,000-mile battery warranty.
Exactly.
But it's let's let people know that.
Yeah.
But this is the one that's getting all the attention. It's giving people a home charger. And, kudos to Ford. A lot of us that are in the EV world, EV YouTubers, we talk often about free charging programs where everybody's going to Electrify America and just camping out because it's free is not the way to go.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. I love this.
And this, almost everything else we've talked about, is key to listening to customers, conducting research. As I mentioned earlier, the market's evolved faster than any other market or the industry really has since probably the turn of the 20th century, where at one point there were 200-something OEMs manufacturing different vehicles, trying this, trying that, and there's consolidation that's taken place over the last 120 years. And now we're in this new electrified revolution, which has completely changed everything again because the way you interact with the vehicle is different. Hey, being able to start every morning with a full charge, that is something you can never do with a nice. So with that comes uncertainty and, to some degree, questions from consumers. So we spent the earlier part of this year trying to understand consumers where they are. People who are interested, EV curious, but have not yet taken the plunge. And what we continually heard was questions over charging. How do I do it? Very simple questions. How do I charge at home? What does that look like? How much does it cost? I don't even know where to start. I haven't called an electrician in 20 years. And so, making that kind of the foundation of the Power Promise, where with the purchase of a Ford electrified vehicle, you can get a complimentary charger and a standard install at your home, takes that element of uncertainty out of the equation and one less barrier for these people who are interested to adopt an EV, an electric vehicle. And so, to your point, a lot of these things were already kind of in the ether. They were part of the Louisville Charge Network, as you mentioned, right? The warranty. But we bundled it together and said, if you trust Ford with it doesn't have to be your first electric vehicle, but your first Ford electric vehicle, we guarantee that you will have live tech support 24/7.
Yeah.
You have the 8-year, 100,000-mile battery warranty. You have access to the Blue Oval Charge Network. And then you also get this complimentary charger with install.
Yeah, and some of these things, like you said, it's like they've been out there. The Blue Oval Charge Network, a lot of people, would comment on our videos like, what is that? What does it even mean? And I'm like, it's, on the surface, it sounds silly because it's like, it's Electrify America and EVgo, the Tesla Supercharger Network under the Blue Oval Charge Network.
Right.
But it actually makes it such a great experience because like we were out, in the middle of nowhere in eastern San Diego County, and there's an EV Connect charger. And it was like, you know what, I could go and like download that app, or I just go, into Ford Pass or on the screen in the car and activate it.
Exactly.
And it's those little things that add up to make it such a better experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, part of it is also just, we wanted to bring the experience collectively back home because, speaking of public charging, the majority of Mustang Mach-E customers, like almost 80%, only public charge less than once a month. Right?
Yeah.
So teaching people the benefit, showing them that you can wake up, you don't have to worry about gas stations, you don't have to even worry about public charging unless you're one of those instances where you're on a road trip.
Right.
It's part of that journey as well. But if you are on a road trip, then you do have the convenience of the Blue Oval Charge Network, which, as you mentioned, has it's an amalgamation of all these other charging companies, which then is simplified through either your in-vehicle infotainment system or your Ford Pass app.
Yeah. And adding to it, it's like the Tesla Supercharger Network. Adding that in has been such a game changer. We're one of those that, because we make YouTube videos about road trips, we're probably road tripping more than if we weren't doing YouTube, but having that access has been like a game changer for us. And, I got some comments on some people, because I originally said, it's like, we don't need a Tesla Supercharger Network. Things have changed over the past 3 or 4 years. Electrify America has not grown as fast as I'd like to see them have grow.
Right.
There's been a lot more EVs, so it's been more saturated. So having access to the Supercharger Network is just a little bit of that peace of mind. And that's what it really is all about, is peace of mind.
Exactly.
I may not need them, but knowing that they're there.
Exactly.
It's why I carry a Tesla destination adapter as well as my Tesla Supercharger adapter. It's just peace of mind.
Exactly. And as we kind of talk about this transition, it's peace of mind because these are situations that most consumers have never been in before. So for you, once you've used, Blue Oval Charge Network a couple times, you know what it is, you know how to do it. And same thing with Tesla, but for a lot of people, these are all first experiences. So making it as easy, which as part of what the Tesla network does provide, like ease, convenience, and reliability, it makes some of those first experiences for electric vehicle customers more seamless, and then they're more likely to want to continue doing it. Oh, and by the way, one of the most impactful thing that people do is word of mouth, right? It's listening to people they trust. And so that is part of the benefit also of the 24/7 tech support is a lot of people, especially in areas which there's rapid adoption but low density, they have simple questions they don't know who to ask. And they might not have found you guys yet. They might not be able to say, these are resources. And that's part of it. So it's like getting that familiarity and getting that repetition of how you face like new elements of adopting electric vehicle, and then therefore going back to their immediate communities and starting to like help their immediate communities, understand how electric vehicles work, what you need to do, et cetera. And so, there's definitely like a grassroots, ground up ease and comfort of adoption that we're really leaning into and hoping that more organically spreads to help drive more people to electric vehicles.
And we've been testing out the texting support. It's pretty cool. We'll put a link in the description. We'll pin a comment of like how to sign up so that you can have access. But it's actually nice and a little bit comforting in knowing that I can text somebody and get like an immediate response. And hopefully, that's something that we're going to be preaching in all of our videos is like sign up for that. Get to know, that it's available. Add them to your contacts so you know how to get a hold of them. And it just makes the whole transition a bit easier. So I'm really excited by all of this stuff. It's like adding up together to be like a really good experience. I did say we should probably check out some of the changes inside. I'm gonna hop in on the driver's side. The biggest change, there's no more gear selector here, it's over here. So, and I had somebody comment and they were like, that's not like a Mustang. And I'm like, well, it also doesn't have a V8 like a Mustang. So I'm good with just this minor change. I think I would get used to that relatively quickly.
Yeah, and recurring theme of listening to what people, or especially our customers, keep saying, there's a lot of freedom that having an electric vehicle brings from like an interior package layout standpoint. Flat floors, like additional storage under here. But one opportunity we continually heard that was missed was having a rotator shifter here that was like taking up unnecessary space.
Yeah.
That could then be moved to somewhere else. We had some suggestions on buttons. We had some suggestions on, this like stock mounted solution. But that's what we want to do. We wanted to create new space over here. And what you'll see now is we've moved to 2 USB-Cs in the center console. And there's a pass-through, so you can actually have your wireless charging, your charging cable pop out here, and this is actually a new way to hold your phone. So you can have a phone being held in here, charging here. You'll see that this whole space here is modular, so more to come with what we're going to do with this little space over here. But basically, new ways for people to utilize interior space and have like alternative charging solutions as well.
That's very cool. Yeah, and it's sort of like everything is always a compromise. I always think about when you're looking at a car, like
always a trade-off.
Fast versus fuel efficient. And I look at it the same thing as like, I like the rotary dial, but I do have to say, like when I first got the Mach-E and especially hopping out between different cars, sometimes I would go like, oh, that's not the gear shifter. It's down here. So,
yeah.
And I got used to that very quickly. I'll get used to this. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's because of the back. I do want to say, because like this doesn't have the ventilated seats, and one of the things that I wanted to say about it, this one doesn't have the glass roof, but a lot of people talk about the glass roof and the ventilated seats on the GT. I find that the glass roof, first of all, is tinted. I never think about the heat coming from it because it's one of the best that we've experienced in blocking the IR radiation coming in. And the ventilated seats, like I love having them, but I gotta say is like the HVAC system in the Mach-E is like one of the best I've ever been in. And I don't have, for a lack of a better term, sweaty back.
Okay.
So it's
Very
sort of like,
term.
Yeah, it's it's like it would be nice to have, but I understand the reason why not. And, if there is an option to have it, I would probably go for it, but it's not like a huge thing to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously appreciate the feedback, something that we're going to continue listening to. Again, it kind of surprised us how many people had a strong feeling on it, but hard to say if that was like initial or if that, that feedback and suggestion will continue going forward. And
we're, at the auto show, so we don't have the key, of course, nearby, but we can sort of see some hints of like some of the graphics have changed for the instrument cluster. Yes. You can just sort of tell by the dips here. So there are some more changes coming in 2025 as well.
Exactly. Yeah, there's all new cluster graphics here, so I think it's a nice improvement over what we've previously had. But yes, there'll be more on that coming soon. But yeah, you can kind of see the initial telltale of those dips. Yeah. But all the graphics within it are different and refreshed.
And some of these changes will filter back, or
I don't know.
I
don't know. There were a lot of other hardware changes made for 2025. We moved to a new DAT system, so a new driver assist technology system. So we were up to 2.1 from the past 1.5. So I am not sure how much of this will be able to be pushed back. But again, in the interest of like constant improvement, there was a lot of the hardware changes that drove moving to Blue Cruise 1.5. And the cluster graphics.
Interesting, because I think a lot of people assume because it's like, it looks, almost identical to the other models, that they should be able to get all the updates. And I, like we all want that. We all want the latest and greatest to be pushed back to us. But now you're just making me want a 2025. I'm gonna start bugging my dealer.
Yeah, that's the hard part is like we kept some of the most visible elements constant, but under the skin there have been continual upgrades from a hardware standpoint that enables new levels of software and new levels of update. And so I'm not sure how much of that will be backwards compatible, but I mean, obviously it's something that we've kept in mind given how many Mustang Mach-E's are existing in service. So
understandable. So not everybody will understand, but I understand. So, all right, I think we should probably wrap it up. We'll hop out and finish this up because we've taken up a lot of your time. So
we'll appreciate it.
That was exciting to learn more about the 2025 Mach-E. It's making me want one because, some of those changes that are under the skin that I really want. I don't know if the heat pump really matters to us. We live in Southern California, at least now, but I don't know if that's the biggest benefit, but like some of the Blue Cruise 1.5, some of the other changes.
I think, in all honesty, to me, the heat pump is detraction for me. I prefer the frunk space, but these are the biggest changes. Visually, the color lineup, there's no more grabber blue. We have the Velocity blue metallic.
Yeah.
And then the molten magenta metallic, which we can't see. I wish we could. But those are big changes. But even bigger than that, the gear shifter switching to the stalk, the ventilated seats.
The new motors introduced in 2024. It's really is neat seeing all the changes.
Yeah,
And I sort of forgot about it
big.
until we were on camera about 5 years ago. It was at the LA Auto Show. We had no intentions of ever doing YouTube. We saw the Mach-E, put in a reservation, and then during the pandemic decided to do YouTube. So
You decided that day because we were doing a travel adventure YouTube. If you ever wanted to know the spiel, that's the start of it.
By the way, yeah, if you guys want to see the video that we made at the 2024 LA Auto Show, there's a lot of other stuff because it was a whole travel weekend. We'll put that in the description if you want some interest. The Mach-E made an appearance in there.
And we like cars. Auto show sounded fun. Patrick loves auto show. I've never been to one before. And they had like this little entertainment thing where you could go and like stand on a stage and introduce the Mach-E. Like everyone was doing that. So the fact we had that
15.5 inch.
a touchscreen. The
Touchscreen,
new
yeah.
Mustang Mach-E. It's just weird to us that happened. I didn't forget because this is like, it's like a warm, special feeling to me that this is where it all started. We would not have continued this if it wasn't for you guys. It's so, so cool. This community is so cool around the Mustang Mach-E, around now the Lightning, around electric vehicles in general. But I'm so glad that we could come take a look, get such an in-depth tour of the new 2025 lineup, the new changes. That was more than I expected.
Yeah, and the
really
key will
cool.
be, seeing how much of a difference that heat pump makes. I don't know if it'll make a huge impact on EPA rated range. Generally, heat pumps, that's not where they show up in their benefits, but where it could help is some of those like short around the town drives when it's not like super cold or whatever, it's like 20 degrees outside and you have a heat pump, which is more efficient versus burning, or electricity to create heat. So I think that's where you're going to see benefits in your efficiency. So it may not translate into like you're on a road trip and getting a lot of extra miles, but it just means you'll be using less electricity on a day-to-day basis driving around town when you don't necessarily track, but it'll show up in your bottom line of how much you're spending. Long story.
And I'm like, my head blocking the Ford logo, so we have to scooch to get it in there. Yay! As it disappears, what on earth?
It's back, see?
Yeah, I don't know. You're making me like, this is making me want to upgrade or update or refresh, whatever we can call it, more than like the eruption green, because that was just an appearance thing. But this is these are big changes now.
Heat pump and motor.
Heat pump and motor, ventilated seats, all that stuff. But we couldn't get that on the GT. We'd probably want the GT.
And it won't, or no rally.
Rally. Ooh.
They don't even have a rally here. I love the rally so much.
I know. Well, we haven't even walked around. We just kind of jumped right here. But in our general tour of the LA Auto Show, we did a little sneak announcement that we just leased a Chevy Equinox EV as well, which is fun to me looking at this because they both have these steering wheel shifters. So that's just like, I don't know. I think it's cool to do changes like that, and it's cool to see how much they changed, what the potential is for the cabin. Anyway, should we go?
Yes, my arm is getting tired.
Yeah. Oh, please. So I've been filming for half an hour. We're going to make you do this outro for half an hour. No, we won't. On that note, thank you so much for joining us for this video in which we checked out the 2025 Mustang Mach-E, the Ford Power Promise. Check out all our other videos of the LA Auto Show, our tour of the Super Truck. What else? Many other things.
We're doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
all sorts of things. Hello. There's so many cool people here working at Ford. Come out to the auto show near you. Huge thank you to our patrons whose names are scrolling across the screen right now. We appreciate you guys so much. A huge thank you to our YouTube members too. You know them by the lightning bolts next to their name. And on that note, just remember that whatever you drive,
whether it's Grabber Blue or Velocity Blue or not blue.
bye. No, enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride.